I probably could have just titled this video what the name of the show actually is, because it sounds so much like a video title myself or many others would use on YouTube. But here we are, the return of Gumball is here, only now instead of a Cartoon Network series, it's on Hulu, and because of that, now on Disney+. Man, we're living in interesting times. Now, the original Gumball series is one that holds a very specific place in time for Cartoon Network's legacy. It's a show that isn't afraid to be as weird and offbeat as it wants, and it seems like that will be the case for this new series, as the name has changed from the Amazing World of Gumball to the Wonderfully Weird World of Gumball, embracing the craziness and unpredictability of the original series. Now, we've talked a little bit about the original series before and talked about how it kind of ends in a more dark and unsettling way, leaving us with a bit of a cliffhanger, but also at the same time, leaving us with the perfect amount of what the heck just happened that only a show like Gumball could have pulled off like it was. So now, several years later, we have an actual continuation from that, bringing us back into the world of the show to see what actually properly continues, what has changed, and what we can expect going forward. As of July 28th, 2025, the first 20 episodes of the series have been released, with the other 20 episodes from its first season still yet to come, most likely releasing later this year. Let's talk about this new Gumball series and see if it has all of the good stuff that made the original series so special and fun, or not. So we're going to go through this batch of episodes and then I'm going to give my thoughts on them. I've been really excited to see what this Gumball team has been cooking up since that first trailer dropped. So let's get started, because they dropped 20 episodes? Okay, they're like 12 minutes each, but 20 episodes? The first episode here, The Burger, has Gumball and Darwin learning about what the food they eat every day can really do to their insides, causing them fear over eating junk fast food, with the fictional Joyful Burger being something that they loved eating. But now, thanks to the shock horror that they witnessed in class, they begin to spiral down a rabbit hole of the food industry as a whole to understand one question: what can they actually eat? So first off, with this being the return episode since the crazy series finale, things need to get answered as to how we are back, right? With here in the show, we enter back in on everything just being covered in a layer of dust, as Gumball and Darwin just brush it off like the literal explanation that the show does. Because they just go, oh, it's been 7 years apparently, I guess we're back, whatever, and then continue on. For the sake of comedy and for what Gumball as a series focuses on, I am all in favor of the comedy aspect being more important than having a scientifically explained reasoning for what happened. That's not to say that one day they could explore that, but with how crazy episodes from the show usually end, I don't know, it doesn't really matter. The initial episode really takes aim not only at how junk or fast food is bad, but climbing up the ladder of everything that's wrong with the food industry. The stuff that is labeled as being healthier for you that is also bad. The fast food healthier alternatives are not that much better for you, and in most cases owned by the same companies selling you on going and getting fast food burgers. When it comes to the food that is truly good for you, it's too expensive and it starts rotting before you're even home to eat it. All of that, albeit in very exaggerated ways, is shown and explored, all the way up to the corporate greed level, as the person on top here is this burger, who represents how the companies are making the decisions that make things the way they are. Also, this then turns into a whole joke about cutting to a commercial break, like this. Sorry, couldn't resist. But the break here in the show turns into a realistic fast food commercial, complete with the super HD shots of food being prepared that looks really good, with people enjoying themselves when buying and eating it. It looks like the most focus-tested thing ever. It's a mirror being put up to the world that we live in, doing so in exaggerated ways for the sake of the show, and so that we can laugh through the pain. And while I do want to keep this video mostly spoiler-free, I'll just say it becomes a partial statement and a joke about eating the rich. It's a solid introduction back into the world of Gumball that feels right at home with what the original show was all about, while also bringing in a lot of new mixing of animation and even live action footage that is pretty fun to watch. Episode 2, The Assistant, is probably the one that you've seen the most clips from online based on what the show released so far to advertise the series being back, with this episode following Nicole and how, as the mother of the household, everything is left for her to do to clean up after and take care of for everyone else. So as this has just gotten worse and worse, she ends up getting some help in her life thanks to a virtual assistant whose AI programming goes from a friendly pal that helps Nicole to full-on blaming the rest of the family as the problem that stops Nicole from living her best life. This episode could have gone one of two ways, either playing into modern technologies in the wrong way here, where the joke is pointing out the new thing and being like, ooh, this is weird and modern, how funny, right? Or in the better way of the jokes being created around the characters themselves and the ridiculous situations that they're in, while this more modern thing is involved. Poking fun at the whole virtual assistant aspect is pretty good too, showing how letting AI get get involved in every aspect of your life, and pretty much doing all the work for you being something that can sound nice and a way to optimize your life, but in reality, it detaches you completely from that. From the first conversation Nicole has with the AI, it shows how much gassing up it can offer based on the programming it has, and how someone like Nicole in her situation can easily be sucked into it further. There's plenty more to dig into with this, but the episode plays it out in a way that is more comedic for everything needing to be optimized. So much so that what is holding her back from this becomes her family in the eyes of the AI. The exaggeration goes beyond this, as if the AI itself wants to only be with Nicole in their own virtual world with no problems or distractions, with this getting worse and worse the more Nicole wants to give time to her family. Plus, the rest of the family needs to learn about pitching in and appreciating all that Nicole does for them. It's a fun little take on the world of AI that we're currently in. The third episode, The Distance, focuses on Gumball and Darwin's relationship, as the two of them seem inseparable. So much so that it might be a problem, so their parents end up turning the basement into a room for Darwin to give a bit of separation for them, as things don't go over so well from this. The episode tends to go a little too over the top here for how we see Gumball and Darwin's friendship, brothership, relationship, whatever ship, as the visuals we see are one thing, but the way this turns into Gumball spiraling without Darwin, going from this awkward and uncomfortable phone call bit between the two of them that is alluded to be something a lot more adult, to Gumball full on thinking that Darwin's cheating on him and breaking up with him, as we see him go crazier and crazier over this. It does feel like this episode was written more so for a bit of an older audience, and then toned down slightly to fit the ratings for a kid's show. Gumball has never been a show that isn't filled with more innuendos or adult themes for the older audiences who watch it to get, but I don't know, something about how the phone call goes between them in this episode really stands out, and not in a great way. It doesn't make the episode bad or anything like that. I'm only talking about it because it stood out to me, and probably will for many others. If anything, this episode just made me miss playing Club Penguin because of the online game that they were playing. Episode 4, The Thing, has Richard trying to retrace his steps through his memory in order to remember what the thing is that his wife is menacingly hoping that he wouldn't forget about. She definitely has put the fear of God into this man, and thanks to the help of the kids, they discover that food is a gateway for their father to remember certain events. This then turns into a montage of trying to find the thing, whatever the thing is, as they continue to have Richard eat more of the food that he ate that day, only to keep presenting Nicole with the wrong thing. And look, there's even a One Piece reference. For this episode, we really focus on the relationship between Nicole and Richard, as we see how Richard's lack of paying attention or truly helping out makes things harder and more difficult for Nicole. Ultimately, I think it shines a light on both sides of how their relationships work, putting things in a more realistic light of her not being mad but just disappointed, which cuts deeper than just being mad, we all know that. But for Richard, we get to see that when things are like this, that he is trying whatever he can to make things right. And while there are going to be ups and downs, I appreciate how the relationship is also shown in this loving way when they get a chance to not have the world around them cause massive stresses on them, or more specifically, stresses on Nicole. Richard is a pretty great character for the fact that he is the underdog, and thanks to a couple other episodes coming up, we get to see more of how he really does try his best as a father, and how he has these inner demons that have held him back in life. There's some really good bits in this episode too, the cutting back and forth from Richard figuring things out to what everyone else sees in reality, or even at the start of the episode when he's asked to start roasting the chicken, and, well, you can guess what he does. You know, it's pretty great, if not somewhat expected stuff. Now, for episode 5, The Butts, we get into another episode that definitely is a bit weird since it literally is all themed around butts, but knowing myself as a kid and knowing my peers around me at the time, butts were always funny, so I get it, but also, it doesn't mean I was an overall fan of the episode, as here we follow Gumball trying to help out Principal Brown find confidence in his appearance, mostly his butt, for which he was made fun of for as a kid since it was bald compared to the rest of his body just being, well, covered in hair. This all started with Gumball wanting to recite his poem about butts at a school recital, but with the superintendent being there and him being the one who bullied the principal back in the day, this makes getting over these issues a lot harder for the principal. The real theme here is learning to love yourself and your appearance, as well as how some, even as adults, can find it hard to ever let go of insecurities that you have about yourself or were even bullied for growing up. I do love the messaging about overcoming this factor of it, and I think a lot of the gags in the episode are pretty good, like them looking into a mirror and seeing how they should see themselves. Yes, Gumball's an anime cat boy, as well as even the poem turning into a full-on rap song at the end, complete with a recreation of the "but I am not a rapper" reaction, with the song not coming off cringy like most inserted rap songs in something like this could, depending on the lyrics and the performance of it, but it's fine enough here. Like I said, there are some hit or misses in this one, but there is at least a good message about loving yourself and working through some past trauma that you may have. Episode 6, The Traffic, has Nicole trying to make sure that the rest of the family tries to be at their best for the sake of getting Anais to the Daisyland amusement park, since every time in the past that it was supposed to be a day for her and have fun there and be the one that's focused on, one of the boys, Richard included, somehow takes over the focus, and then they never get to go. So now with the park actually set to close, Nicole really wants to make sure that she can give her daughter this experience. This, of course, goes about as well as you'd think, with things getting progressively more aggravating thanks to the traffic on the way to the park, the problems that the car has, Darwin's fear of a certain park mascot, and Gumball's relationship with Penny and their text messaging dilemmas. I do think that the traffic aspect of the episode is kind of sidelined for all of the craziness going on inside of the car, but there is this one moment that Nicole has trying to merge back into traffic and how no one lets her in, and it feels so realistic. When she's not let back in, everyone in the other car just aggressively glares at her, and if that ain't the most realistic thing, then I don't know what is. Especially at first when Nicole is trying to justify that cars not letting her in is alright because she gets it, she'd probably do the same. But after long enough, she snaps and can't take it anymore. Aside from that, the whole situation with Gumball and Penny is pretty great as well. They are still together as a couple, and Gumball's constantly texting her because he was supposed to have a date with her, but had to go on this trip, and there are some pretty funny moments that happen due to misunderstandings in what's being said and the messages mainly caused by the chaos of what's going on in the car. That's the other fun aspect, as everyone has their own level of problems or stress going on. Anais is the only calm one, and with how they treat each other as a family towards the end, it just feels very wholesome. For episode 7, The Astrological, Mr. Small starts teaching and spreading his beliefs in astrological predictions thanks to this mysterious glowing stone, as he makes claims of who will fall in love with who, leading to him saying that Gumball and Penny don't belong together, and by the end of the day, they will break up. At first, these two very much don't believe in any of this stuff, and know that they love each other and all is good, but over the course of the day, as they witness others that were predicted to be together start falling in love, Gumball gets more and more worried, causing complications in their relationship. The episode takes aim at astrology and listening strictly to the signs, with how some people can either take it too seriously or only see it as nothing at all. It really boils down here as an episode that is meant to give us more of a look into Gumball and Penny's relationship, why they work well together, and how sometimes you can end up causing a problem over worrying about a potential problem that wasn't there in the first place. I feel the point where this is really felt so well is when Gumball starts making things worse after Penny has already expressed that she has said that there is nothing wrong for Gumball to worry about, and you can really hear it in her voice how hurt she is over Gumball not listening to her. There was also some cool visuals in this episode with a pretty fun back and forth about something maybe not being what it seems that made the episode fit right into the weirdness of the series. Episode 8, The Cheerleader, is a surprisingly deeper episode that deals with Richard and how he has to face his generational trauma that he directly experienced through his mother, and how she treated him in his dreams of being a cheerleader when he was a kid, leading to him now as an adult only being able to call himself a failure and not have a real level of self-worth, which has now held him back in life. I really like that Gumball has plot points like this and isn't afraid to dig into characters and their relationships to their parents, whether it be about becoming your own person that isn't what your parents tell you you are, or in escaping the past demons you have that were instilled into you at a younger age. Richard's mom is very much a character that has these tendencies to worry about herself and only views Richard as a person who will listen and follow her demands and wants rather than letting him be his own person. She tells him that his dreams will not come true, that his family lineage are all a certain type of people who don't get to go for their own wants in life, and now all these years later, Richard is stuck as a man with little to no confidence in himself, aside from when he looks in the mirror from the other episode, and we get to see how the rest of the family comes together to help build him up and cheer him on as he needs to escape from how he was always made to feel about his dreams. It's genuinely a sweet episode that doesn't hold back on the issues they are discussing, but my personal favorite part that felt very real was at a point where Richard is giving it his all for his dreams and proving everything his mother said wrong. We see her then switch to now taking credit for this by saying that's her Richard, but Nicole stops her from taking the credit that she doesn't deserve, telling her no, he's their Richard, meaning Nicole's and the kids' Richard, and I think that's pretty authentic to how something like this can be portrayed. Episode 9, The Boring, is all about how Gumball and Darwin clearly don't pay attention or show a true level of care to others, oftentimes being oblivious to the world around them and causing problems for others, especially Tina here, as they ruin something very important to her, causing her to call them out about this, as it then escalates to her threatening to beat them up after school. Now, this all plays into another character, Molly, who is said to talk to you so much and in such a boring way that it can literally slow down time around you, as Gumball and Darwin end up taking advantage of this, and of Molly in general, for all of the wrong reasons to avoid accountability rather than take responsibility, say sorry, and be better in the future to others. This is one of those episodes that when you watch it, you can't help but just constantly sigh at the things that Gumball and Darwin do. Like, sure, there are plenty of funny moments that stem from it, but man, the whole time you just know that they are making every wrong choice possible and are actively thinking and doing things that push them further from what they actually need to do. Also, when you do find out what Tina was working on, that the two of them had no respect for and only made worse through their ignorant comments, it really makes sense why Tina would get so upset and angry as she did in this. There's still great stuff for Gumball and Darwin to learn, but the journey to get there definitely felt like they were doing anything else aside from trying to eventually get there. Episode 10, The Teacher, follows an action-filled side adventure featuring Gumball and his teacher Miss Simeon, as he believes that she's stealing from the school and, further on, being a criminal that is tangled up in a larger web of crime, as Gumball feels taken hostage and put on this terrifying ride. What the episode really explores, though, is the problem with school funding and how the school itself is barely operating in a way where students are getting the real tools to help them for success, and this season in general really goes out of its way to almost in every episode show how teachers are underpaid, how the school is barely held up with paper-thin walls, and how this plays into how bad things can be behind the scenes for the public school education system. There's a big message here about how teachers themselves can go out of their way with what little money they do have and make here to try and make the experience better for students outside of what the school budgets a lot for. It reminds me of when teachers for my classes growing up would sure go out of their way to do things like paying for a little pizza party with some drinks that the school didn't cover, or even have teachers cover the cost of certain school trips so that every student in the class could afford to go. The older you get, the more you look back on things teachers may have done, and you realize that there were genuine caring educators that would make their own sacrifices and try to make the experience for students overall the best it could be. Teachers can definitely go unappreciated, and I like how we see that explored here in the episode. Plus, there is also a statement on where the school funding went, and how a lot of this funding somehow always goes to these over-the-top and very unnecessary additions to the police force, as they then use them in excessive ways for the sake of it. There's also this very aggressive dig at influencers and how they have no real skills or offer nothing to society and are just a parasite that begs for free stuff, and you know, that was pretty funny. The only free stuff that I beg for is a like on the video and for you to subscribe. But yeah, sorry for not offering anything of real value to the world. You know, I'll try to do better. Probably not, I talk about cartoons. But I also don't claim to be an influencer, so maybe content creator and influencer can be viewed in a bit of separate lights? I don't know, you tell me. Episode 11, The App, has Gumball and Darwin facing the zombification of every kid who uses an app that is basically TikTok, showcasing the addictive nature of the app and how you'd see things online not being what they actually are, what they seem in real life. And with how bad this spreads to everyone, Gumball and Darwin, who are awakened to the truth, must figure out a way to help all the others no longer be these addicted zombies. There is a bit of a They Live parody that helps get to both of them to see the truth about what the app addiction is doing to people, thanks to the tech billionaire who created this super addictive algorithm originally. Now, this type of episode could have gone either way, where it might have been another cringy take on, oh, kids these days and their social media. But what I really like is how they wrote an episode that is balanced well between being for boomers, millennials, zoomers, etc., that I feel everyone included can find relatable, and it doesn't come off eye-rolling. And I think that's genuinely impressive, with the episode focusing on the nature of these apps and their life cycles, rather than it being about how silly the kids are for using it. The joke is placed on the situation and not targeting the generations of people using it, even when it becomes a joke about how when kids' parents start getting on these popular apps, and how that then eventually kills any interest a kid would have for being on that app anymore. It's a pretty funny episode overall, some great jokes here, especially with the person who created the algorithm, and heck, look at all the 2000s technology he's covered in, you gotta love it. Plus, there is also mumbling that comes from the zombie-like state of the kids at one point, and when one of them very faintly says like and subscribe, it got a good chuckle out of me. Episode 12, The Entrance, may just be the best episode in the entire season, as we follow Gumball and Darwin, who want to make the coolest entrance at Tobias's party. But with no one even wanting to go, they decide to send everyone a special gift that would be claimed to be from Tobias so that all the kids would show up. But the problem is that the gift that they send everyone is this special grenade-looking fragrance called cologne. And beyond that, the problem here is that for some reason, the spray basically makes it all feel like they're on drugs, complete with the extreme highs, the trippiness, and of course the crashes. And holy crap, this episode goes off the rails and plays with so many visuals and manipulations of sound that you might feel like you took some of the spray yourself. The jokes in this episode are so good, making references to someone being the first unfluencer, or this moment of arriving somewhere and them being fine, but then cutting back to see what really happened for how they even got there, reminding me heavily of that one scene in The Wolf of Wall Street. I think they nailed the experience of being on these substances, because it can come off as a gambit of emotions depending on the situation. situation, going from extreme sadness to admiration to hopelessness to jump scares to then partying. There is just so much that I feel went into making this whole episode feel as authentic as possible, so to whatever the writing room had done here to accomplish this, your efforts are appreciated. Again, this is an episode that feels more so aimed at an older audience thanks to the themes presented, the outcome of everything in the end, and one really amazing animated sequence that feels like it was ripped straight out of something that you'd see in the middle of the night on Adult Swim. There's also this real, genuine moment where Tobias has this conversation with himself about if all the money in the world can buy friends or not, that ends up making his character feel more dimensional than just this rich jerk that he can sometimes come off as. Plus, I love that there are these subtle things that happen in the background that you can either fully see or are just slightly blurred that fill you with suspense and anticipation, that layer the moment with more anxious or unsettling feelings, causing it to feel more realistic for the situation that the characters are in while being on this substance. It's a ridiculously fun and funny episode that by far is my favorite from this season. Episode 13, The Letter, is all about Darwin wanting to express his love for Carrie in a more emotional way within a love letter that once he realizes is only going to make things worse, like a lot worse, thanks to who she is and where she's from and how it can hurt her, he now must find a way to get it back before she reads it so he doesn't mess things up with the girl that he loves. Gumball ends up being a true pal in more ways than one in this episode, but mainly in being the main help for Darwin in getting this letter back for him. It's an episode that explores boundaries and understandings of what may work for some may not work for others. So while Gumball and Penny are super affectionate towards one another, Darwin and Carrie work well for how they share their love in more subtle ways, but that's still meaningful for them. I love the messaging on how making your partner as comfortable as possible and working together to meet in the middle being a respectful gesture that takes away stress and pressure that either could or would be feeling. There's some fun stuff in here with the letter originally being written on paper that was from the literal Necronomicon so that it couldn't be destroyed. It's just good stuff, some great bits, and an overall nice message about boundaries and understandings in a relationship. Episode 14, The Gut, is an interesting episode to say the least. For her science project, Anais ends up inventing this communication device for organic matter that her dad ends up accidentally eating, as it then fuses with the crazy stomach ecosystem he has inside of him that turns his tummy into a sentient being. One that is insanely smart that starts winning over Anais, while Richard feels like he is losing his daughter to his new smart gut, while the gut is quickly siphoning away Richard's life force for nefarious reasons. The episode ends up with the focus of Richard feeling like he's not a good enough dad or isn't smart enough to keep up with all that she's into, leading to the disconnects that they have and how he always somehow ruins her things or her activities. As the gut can keep up and even engage Anais in more sophisticated conversations and activities, it really is a choice between a father who truly loves her, and even if he's not perfect, he really does try genuinely to be involved in her life, or this perfect, smart, and constantly growing force that has bigger plans for himself and wants Anais to join him in being evil geniuses? Or something. While the premise of The Gut is silly and all that, I appreciate the heart of the episode and the relationship between father and daughter here. The whole gut taking over the father thing feels somewhat similar to the AI episode putting this wedge between Nicole and the family, so each parent technically gets an episode like this, and it's nice to see how they and the family overcome it. There's some good jokes in this one for sure still, especially the Snog Island joke poking fun at reality shows, specifically Love Island, and what the core focus of those shows are even about. I also just think it's really funny when they have these live action bits pop up in the series. Episode 15, The Wrinkle, still has a focus on Anais and her experience with the family. Where earlier we saw how she is the only one who isn't stressing when in the car while everyone else is, here we explore her stresses over dealing with the family and constantly having to worry about them and their future, leading to her getting all of these wrinkles. From this, she really wants to set everyone up in the family for a successful and safe future where she wouldn't have to worry, especially when she's older and not there for all of them. We then see each plan for everyone, like for Darwin, it's about toughening him up for the real world as he gets sent to a cult criminal syndicate to be put through ridiculous, dangerous tests that should harden him up. Gumball is just sent to some legal representation to understand that with all the trouble that follows him, that he can get in more serious trouble once he's an adult, and is told what he needs to do in order to not have that happen. Lastly, for Richard and Nicole, she just wants to retire them to a farm so that they can be stress-free from the problems they get into fights over at home and live a more relaxed life so that their arguments don't end up in Nicole murdering Richard. All of this is really for nothing because each situation ends up with something even more ridiculous and it ultimately not working out in the end. And the main sequence here for Darwin and then later how that connects to Gumball's situation is genuinely so well done and hilarious. It's the highlight of the episode for sure. Plus the messaging in the end, focusing on mistakes being what makes life interesting and that it's okay to not live life planned out to be perfect, making it better to experience most things in life as they happen, which will then lead to the best and most special moments authentically happening, is really nice and done so in a fun fun animated song and dance sequence. There's this love and care that the family have for Anais, and all they want to do is not cause her stress or make her feel like it's her burden to worry about them and watch over them and take care of them and help them and so on and so forth. A very fun and very wholesome episode overall. Episode 16, The Gourmet, has Gumball really wanting to eat something more special than the same old standard school meal of chicken nuggets, or what's made for him at home, but more specifically, he wants this gourmet macaroni that Masami has for lunch that her rich high society family has their personal chef make for her, to which she doesn't even eat it or care about these factors at all. So when Gumball later on wants only that and his parents can only afford to do their best and it's not the same, he gets into a fight with his mom, leading to him just being told to go live with Masami's family if he wants that life so bad. But it's really about him doing whatever it may take for him to get his hands on that mac and cheese. And trust me, I get it. And heading over there, Gumball ends up dealing with Masami's mother mainly, Yuki, a character that has a very connected past in the series to Nicole, which is partially the main reason Nicole crashed out in her argument with Gumball earlier. In order for Gumball to get what he wants though, he must learn the ways of being distinguished, learning how to dress properly, have a refined palate, and do everything that Yuki puts him through in order to eventually try this gourmet macaroni. Yuki decides to help Gumball in these ways because it's a good way to get back at Nicole, claiming her to be not a great mother and that she can now show her up. Now, when it comes to the undertones of the episode, I do love how Masami couldn't be less into the rich and snooty lifestyle that her mother is so invested in if she tried. Sure, she's around it, she lives in it, but there is a disconnect clearly between mother and daughter here, making it ironic for Yuki to claim Nicole to be the bad mother. While Masami has access to all of the best of anything, she tunes out from the world around her with a very blasé attitude and doesn't even care about the gourmet food, preferring to order some chicken nuggets on an app. I find a lot of this dynamic interesting, and I love how Gumball places a lot of these connections in smaller moments or in the background for you to place together or only get little snippets of. While we do get some Nicole versus Yuki moments in this episode, we don't get a big massive payoff between them, one-on-one outside of a resolution to Gumball's main goal, and a bit of petty revenge. Don't worry, we get a little bit of that anime tease, Nicole's ready to go full Super Saiyan, but the door is open for more of Nicole and Yuki to deal with one another face to face. Plus, I love the messaging here about just because you have less than someone else may have, that doesn't make you a lesser person. Episode 17, The Pool, focuses on Richard, Gumball, and Darwin all trying to figure out a way to deal with this scorching heat wave, hoping to take a swim in their neighbor, Mr. Robinson's pool, to which he constantly denies them of this in more aggressive and mean-spirited ways the more ways they try to get him to say yes. There's actually a lot of themes being explored in this episode, whether they come off of a singular comment or are further discussed beyond that, from the generational blame of younger generations just not working hard enough to afford things, like in this example, a pool or a fancy smart house with controls or air conditioning, and how it's all their own fault for how hard things are for them versus the world that these younger generations have just inherited that come with less opportunities and more expenses than ever, genuinely holding people back. We also explore the regrets that the older generation may have by prioritizing work to provide a certain lifestyle for their family while continually losing sight of the reason you were doing this all in the first place, striking divides in the family, and there's so much to dive into and take away from all that, despite parts of these comments and moments also being played for comedy. There's commentary on toxic parents and also being toxic to the environment, which has led to such a massive heat wave in the first place. While I think there was a lot said, however, it doesn't necessarily feel like it goes anywhere. While yes, it alludes to certain things in smaller ways just for you to take and think about, the other stuff that it does dig into feels like it's saying, here's this thing, and then it doesn't get too much deeper than that. Either way, it's not a bad episode, it just feels about as empty as the pool by the end of it. I just wish it had a little more of what they were trying to say packed in there. And it's not that it needed to, I just would have preferred that. Episode 18, The Portrait, is all about Nicole wanting to just have one nice photo taken of the family together that isn't ruined or isn't just the drawing they have on the wall of themselves. But of course, things aren't going to be as simple as she wanted them to be, as the photo constantly is interrupted by more and more family members coming over and causing chaos, leading to the whole photo shoot and what Nicole simply wanted to end up getting ruined. We also just get a bunch of extended family lore through all of them individually coming over, from Richard's mother bringing over old family heirlooms like this mysterious cube that all of the kids are oddly obsessed with, to Nicole's parents coming over and telling her that they are splitting up, and now her mom is dating a person younger than Nicole, to then Richard's dad, who was in jail, now being here thanks to his parole officer, who is now also his girlfriend. Yeah, a lot's going on. Things get pretty out of hand and ridiculous pretty quick, and we end up getting getting this really genuine moment of care that comes from Richard's father, with it being something that really helps wrangle everyone into being sympathetic to Nicole's original want and having everyone become cooperative. And then this is turned into something else entirely that leads into another plot point for Richard's father, and this whole big mess with the cops raiding the house as everything turns into an even bigger mess. But despite all of this, the core family all come together to try and capture a nice photo of who they are, as it perfectly encapsulates the Wattersons, a family that all truly love each other at the end of the day, but is always surrounded by chaos, a chaos that can never truly break them thanks to the family that they are. Even if everything is all just a big joke in the end for what the whole purpose for the episode was in the first place. For episode 19, The Climb, no, it doesn't feature Miley Cyrus, but instead it features a rock wall that Gumball is scared to face and climb based on what happened the last time he did, where he was accidentally pantsed in front of everyone and now has PTSD when it comes to touching or even seeing the rock climbing wall. Darwin wants to help Gumball face these fears and beat them in order for him to feel better and no longer hold on to these memories that pain him, putting him through various training methods that Gumball wants to conquer so that he can actually do this, but nothing ends up working. Eventually, after many methods, Gumball finds, through his own vision of speaking with his pants, the confidence in truly climbing this mental mountain. Now, this episode gives us a lot of fun segments of Gumball trying to work through this, especially on the baby playground set, where these rough and tough baby characters come out and they talk all tough and they even beat up the coach. I just think that whole bit was really funny. There's also more commentary on the school's budget, as we see the paper-thin walls constantly collapsing, and how the principal wants to use Anais's robot building smarts to help Gumball so that he can really just show it off to the military and get grants or in general paid by them to help fund the school. Hey, so maybe that leads somewhere eventually. The overall finale to the episode is definitely pretty visual, and I think the principal puts it best that maybe every member of the school faculty witnessing what Gumball is doing is going to get fired for this, and I'll just leave it at that. Now, for the final episode of the drop, episode 20, The Amadane, follows Gumball's time with Penny as he goes over to her house and ends up getting in the middle of a family conflict of her being told to put back on the shell that she no longer wears in order to partake in their family's traditions for a birthday party for her grandma. As she firmly doesn't want to, trying to take a stand for herself and for what she chooses, Gumball jumps in to try and calm the tensions by saying that he'll stick around and wear a shell as well, leading to Penny reluctantly putting hers back on. She's for sure mad at this and gets revenge on Gumball by having him partake in the festivities in ways that make him look bad, or could anger the grandmother and overall just embarrass both her father and Gumball himself. This does boil up to the point where Gumball has a moment where he sheds his shell and sticks up for Penny and her decisions in life directly to the grandmother, to which Penny ends up loving and appreciating that he would stick up for her like this. And while that's nice, Gumball is definitely scared of the rest of the family and what they're going to do to him or put him through because of their strange and different traditions that he has now fought back against. Now, the end here does go in an interesting direction, and overall the theme here is about acceptance in people being their own person, taking how it's shown here to just be in a personal family tradition setting, and you can apply it to yourself or in anything that you can think of that would be in this situation, whether it be something of the same or even more personal instances of how you should always be accepted for who you are, and that acceptance doesn't alienate you away from the ones that love and care about you, as this explores a bit of the fear in being able to stand up for yourself or express that you are uncomfortable with something. It's a pretty good final episode in this batch that has some standout moments in it, especially this guy who has this realistic human mouth, and because of how it looks, I can't help but think of the Juggernaut in Deadpool 2. But there's a pretty funny and almost sad scene that involves him that it just gets me every time. I've seen each episode twice now. I also appreciate how it builds Gumball and Penny's relationship even further, and helps him break out of just trying not to get her in trouble, to showing that she is right in being able to be her own person, and he should be sticking up for her instead of being a part of the reason why she's being suppressed. So now, after watching the first 20 episodes of the season, it's clear that you are going to be getting more of the same that you would have from the original show here. It lives up to the name of it all being weird. It's extremely weird, and sometimes that weird pays off, and sometimes there are a few misses that didn't work for me, but I don't think it ruins anything as a whole. I was worried initially about the show following the tropes of other shows that come back that rely on just catching these characters up to modern day, where the humor is about how would so-and-so react to stuff like TikTok or VR headsets, smart cars, stuff like that. But luckily, a lot of that stuff was kept to a minimum, and even when it was involved, the comedy came from poking fun and criticizing where society is at with these things, and the ridiculous way the characters are tangled in with it, rather than it being funny for something like Gumball wanting to make a TikTok and it's funny because he's just doing the TikTok. There's a big difference in how to handle stuff like this, and I appreciate how Gumball was able to find that nice balance of including things like this without losing focus of where the joke should be coming from. I really enjoyed how the show doesn't try to give you a real explanation for why things are back. It forgoes what you don't really need to be worrying about in favor of just bringing you back into the world of Gumball and having a fun time. I feel what would be most important would be nailing the tone that made the original show so special and building on with anything new from there. And it really feels like these episodes could have just been a season 7 to the original series. It understood the show that came before it and now continues it forward with more of what you'd want to see. The show has so many unique qualities to it, continuing to add in more fun animation styles and techniques that blend in the weirdness of the world so naturally that nothing ever feels weird or off. It just all works together. I genuinely believe that if you loved the Amazing World of Gumball, then you will love the wonderfully weird world of Gumball and what it has to offer. It never felt that they were just going back to reuse stories or plot points that have happened before. While it does have connective tissues like with Gumball dating Penny or even Nicole's rivalry with Yuki, it feels like we are still moving forward. It feels like Gumball's relationship with Penny specifically moves forward every time we deal with it, especially with the astrological love rock episode and then this final episode of the first batch of episodes. I appreciate the approach to handling these characters in both the unrealistic ways that exaggerate the experiences they have and the realistic ways of exploring who they are. The original Gumball show felt like something special, and I am happy that this new Gumball show respects that and continues on with it. I highly recommend checking out the wonderfully weird world of Gumball. It was a pleasant experience and I think you'll enjoy it, both if you already are a Gumball fan or if you've never seen the show. It's a very easy barrier of entry. The basic stuff you probably wouldn't know doesn't change the plot or how you feel about the characters. The necessary stuff is explained and the rest is all good for you to jump into. I am very excited to see what the remaining 20 episodes of this season have to offer when they eventually come out, and when they do, I guess I'll be making another video then to give my thoughts on them. But you tell me, have you had a chance to check out these brand new episodes of Gumball? And if so, let me know your thoughts on them in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like on this video and to subscribe for more videos like this coming soon, but until then, later.